Very well.
So, I am Andrew Higdon, and I'm joined today with two of my great friends.
Sam Lawlace.
Eric Skoronsky.
This is just not just a way for us to connect with people that might have like interests with us, but it's also therapeutic for us because, these are the type of conversations that we have every day. And we thought, what better way to get together and have one of these conversations, but record it and share it with everyone else. What do you guys think?
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense to me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just get right on into it. So I am a digital web developer with 18 years experience, but I'm a huge fan of everything Star Wars, sci-fi, and geek culture. And I've been following a lot lately what's been going on with one of my favorite properties, which is Star Wars. And so I kind of thought I'd bring that to the table to begin with and talk to you guys a little bit about what your feelings are with Star Wars now post Last Jedi, which everybody has differing opinions on. It was a very divisive film, I think, especially for the community. So you have 50 people that definitely loved it, thought it was the greatest movie ever made, and then you have 50 people like me, 50% of people like me that did not think it was that good. As a matter of fact, I've been thinking about it a lot since December when I saw it for the first time.
Yeah, I left the theater with a very mixed reaction. It was like some parts I thought were really well done, and then some parts left me kind of, and so kind of have to sort through the movie as a whole and where it actually leaves us in the franchise. I think titling it The Last Jedi was a really interesting choice since it turned out to be such a controversial film. I feel like they could have anticipated that maybe just a little bit better and not called it The Last Jedi, where you have seemingly a pretty good chunk of the viewership like calling it quits and walking away.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe Give the Jedi Another Chance would be a better title.
I think that's what we're going to get for the next one.
Yes.
Please come back.
Yes.
Please give us another chance.
Yes, Star Wars, The Return of the Fans.
I don't know. Did you guys get a chance to see Solo in the theaters?
Yeah, I saw Solo.
So you are one of the only people that saw it.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting. Solo did not do well in theaters at all. I thought it was a perfectly reasonable sort of Star Wars movie. I was
same. I enjoyed it.
This was fine. I had extremely low expectations going into it.
Right.
I didn't feel like the trailers I'd seen really sold the film well, and apparently a lot of people felt the same way. But I went and saw it anyway because it's Star Wars, and I was impressed.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm a little surprised it got such a bad rap.
Me too.
I think people were inclined to dislike it, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
You think that's a spillover from The Last Jedi?
It could be. It could be.
And earlier. I think, honestly, we've been building into that since the prequels.
Yeah.
Where it became popular in the gap, especially in the gap between the prequels coming out and then The Force Awakens. It became a really popular pop culture thing to make fun of how bad the prequels were.
Yeah,
that's true.
And I think that's still carrying over in the Star Wars fan base, that we have this sense of Star Wars became a joke. And so we have this idea of it's fun to make fun of what they did wrong. And so we accentuate all of the problems that there are in the newer movies,
right,
rather than looking at the things that they did well. I think that's what happened to Solo. I think that's what happened to The Last Jedi. Because, again, it wasn't the best Star Wars movie, but I don't feel like it was the worst Star Wars movie. And I remember I got back from the theaters seeing Last Jedi to Facebook petitions going around saying, take it out of canon.
Right. Let's read. There's even a parody account now for Twitter that people can send in their pledges it doesn't make them send you money, but it's like, we're going to raise enough money to redo The Last Jedi completely.
Yeah. Which I just, I'm not, I think you're right. I think it is popular to hate on it at some level.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's justified.
No.
I think things like they did in Last Jedi, the interaction between Rey and Kylo, particularly post Death of Snoke, was really interesting.
Oh yeah.
There is meat in that relationship and storyline. It's like but then you get other parts of the film where it's like, whoa, what?
Luke Skywalker,
I mean,
Finn and Rose.
Yeah.
Finn and Rose. That relationship was weird.
That didn't play so well.
It didn't translate well.
I didn't think.
That actress left Instagram, over bullying lately.
Yeah.
She got run off, and she did a piece in the New York Times talking about her experiences with not just bullying post of Last Jedi, but just her whole entire life. She was equating it to the way that people have made her feel her whole entire life. It was a really powerful conversation that she started, and you wonder, was that you? It's okay. Let's turn those phones off. No, it's really interesting to me to listen to her talk about those things, and like Chris was saying, it's real interesting to see where we are as a fandom going forward. How is this all going to shake out? Because, like you said, it became popular to hate on Star Wars, and that breaks my heart because I grew up with this property. I love Star Wars. That's why I care so much about it. Now, a lot of people feel the same way, obviously, because you have all these reactions that are so emotional.
Yeah, you don't get as strong a reaction as The Last Jedi got or as Solo got if you don't have people who care.
Right.
That stems from people who are invested in these stories, not being satisfied with what they're seeing, or as I said earlier, getting caught up in the culture of making fun of what's wrong without acknowledging what's good.
Yeah, and I think that could lead to, you mock it, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? And they go, hey, you know what? We went X number of years between making, Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. We'll do that again.
Yeah.
And then the fans are going, oh.
Yeah.
Where'd Star Wars go?
Right. Okay, you don't like what we're doing? Okay, we're just not going to do it.
Because, it's hugely expensive to make these movies, and if they're going to do what Solo did, it's not worth it to the studios.
No, they're not going to make Star Wars movies. They own the property.
Yeah, they'll sell lunchboxes and action figures.
Yeah. They're not even doing that. Like, if you've seen some videos that I've seen on the internet, like, Star Wars has become a dying brand, which is crazy to me, because growing up, it was the Cadillac of brands. It was the greatest thing I'd seen.
Yeah. And how much of that stemmed from just the original three?
Right.
They went 20 years between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace, where there was no new Star Wars movies, and the brand didn't stop.
No.
Yeah.
They did not. They made George Lucas billions of dollars. But I think he got a little bit of what we're seeing now, too, with that he just got tired of it. It just sapped him of all his energy. You're going to create these movies and people are going to hate them and hate you. And you're just like, what? And so Disney's experiencing exactly that. Star Wars fans are, a vocal people.
Yeah.
And at least for now, unforgiving.
Unforgiving, indeed.
Yeah. You're hard to please.
Yeah.
Which, Solo, right?
Right. Which I thought was a solid film.
Well, and it's not like, with Solo, it's not like the third movie in a trilogy where you really need it to tie everything together and make everything good. It's a one-off. Not a whole lot is riding on Solo. So what I consider what the passing grade, it doesn't have to be the best movie ever. If it's a fun summer action comedy with Star Wars, that's great. Give us some Easter eggs on, characters that we already know. That's all it needs to do.
Yeah.
So did you guys like Rogue One? You know,
Yeah.
Talking about those Star Wars story movies, the in-betweens. Me too.
I thought Rogue One,
Mm-hmm.
it's the best modern Star Wars.
Yeah,
you know,
the
of
Disney,
the ones
Disney
of the
era.
Disney era.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one that. Yeah,
I would definitely agree with that.
yeah. It felt like they really had a story to tell, and that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way they tied it into the beginning of A New Hope, it felt like this is Star Wars. This, even though I mean, you know, it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that they actually accomplished the mission, right? So I mean, so it's not like a straight tragedy. They did the thing, but everybody dies.
And even though going into it, you know, in my mind, I was thinking this is going to happen. I was still at the end hoping that they would live.
Right. There would be some, you know, Scotty would beam them up. And,
exactly. That was my hope. And, you know, I wasn't upset when it happened. But out of all of them that have, you know, come from the modern era, I thought that was the best one. That Darth Vader scene.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was perfect, right? I mean, that you get the dark corridor, you know, there's the lightsaber blade, and it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing with that, you know.
Yeah.
So you don't get to see too many moments of him doing that, you know, where you're reading the comics and you're reading all his side stories, how awesome he was, you know, and how terrifying. That moment, you know, in that film gave me that, you know, like understanding of why he was such a terrible character.
Yeah.
You know, not terrible in the sense of a terrible character, but like, you know,
a terrifying character.
Terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You could easily just be paralyzed with fear when Vader shows up. It's like, you know, when the Nazgul show up.
Right.
It's like just you know. He has that presence, and well deserved, right? I mean, he earned that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, he commanded his scenes when he in the original trilogy, but you just didn't see that. You didn't see that aspect of it.
Right. Right. You could infer it.
Right.
But you didn't
From the
see
way
it.
That other people
right. Which is exactly what you want more movies to do. If they're playing, like, especially prequel movies, you know, you're filling in some of the things that you hinted at previously. Right. You fill in the details, and you can either do that in a, you know, wooden, ham-fisted way, or you can do that artfully and evocatively, and I think that's what Rogue One did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, that being said, where do you think we go from here, guys? You know, what are you hoping to see, or like, what are your predictions for how this next movie is going to go? But more than that, do you think that at this point, this is actually salvageable? This story,
yeah.
You know, like, because that's been a lot of the conversation online. Is, you know, Last Jedi felt like it was the end of a trilogy, not the middle.
Right. As a second film.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so as a franchise, I think it is salvageable. I think if they release a awesome third movie and they tie stuff in and they retcon stuff nicely, either explaining what happened or ignoring, recontextualizing. You know, now it works like this. Whatever they have to do, I think the fans are back in. I think if you blow the fans away with the movie, they're back in. Just like I mean, fans came back after Clone Wars. You know, and honestly, the fan base came back after a long time after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I mean, in droves. $2 billion.
Yeah.
Force Awakens was, you know, a hit.
Right. So yeah, I think they can definitely salvage it, but they have to do it, and they have to listen to the fans. I think.
Right.
I think they can't just say, "Ooh, this was my vision, and we're going to do it."
Yeah.
To some extent.
Though to another extent, I think it's also important that they not try in this next movie to just either completely ignore what happened in Last Jedi or try and rewrite Last Jedi as the next one. They need to actually move forward.
Mm-hmm.
They need to
don't be ashamed of your mistakes. Own them and move forward.
And if you can fix some of those, that would be fantastic. But it's better to move on and leave that hanging there than to dwell on that, trying to fix it in the next movie, and have that bring that movie down too.
Right. Yeah.
If you get too caught up on issues like who was Snoke, I know there are a lot of fans who are really upset that we get no answers about Snoke whatsoever.
Right.
And if the next movie is all about, well, we're gonna, do flashbacks and figure out who this character was.
No.
That's going to go horribly wrong because that's not where the story's at.
Right. In the story where it is, who Snoke was doesn't matter. He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone.
If you want to tell that story, make that a Star Wars story.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Move.
Yeah. That would.
Like they did with Solo, though. We're going to tell this character's backstory in its own movie, a little more disconnected, and not have that bog down what we're trying to do moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think they should focus on the things that went well in Last Jedi. We should see a lot of Rey, a lot of Kylo.
That interaction was dynamite on screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see where that goes. They do have the problem of the Resistance fits on the Millennium Falcon.
There's an the interesting thing about that is they're doing a cartoon that they just announced, Star Wars Resistance. Okay, to tell you where the fans are right now as a whole. Okay, this trailer for this cartoon that plays on Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Supposed to be for kids, but it plays at 10 p.m. On Sunday nights, so it's definitely not for kids. Shot like it's for kids, and I think as of the time we're recording this. It has 10,000 on YouTube. It has 10,000 upvotes to 70,000 downvotes.
Oh wow!
That's how pissed people are.
Wow!
Just to tell you, how anything that comes out post Last Jedi is going to be looked at hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be critiqued. It's going to. I mean, get ready for it, and you need to own that. Can J.J. Abrams do that? I don't know. I don't know if he can or not.
Yeah.
I thought he did a solid outing with The Force Awakens. I thought The Force Awakens was a good movie. But I was just not happy with the way things ended up in Last Jedi. But, like Chris is saying, well, let's move on from that.
Eric.
Why am I calling you Chris? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. We're going to have to edit some of this.
It's fine.
Okay.
Here, let's see. It's at the 19-minute mark.
Okay. Sorry, man.
That's okay.
I know your name's Eric. That's what's crazy about that. Okay, so let's talk about something else that was going on in Solo. What did you guys think about the ending? Okay, the shoehorned bit of fan service that was just thrown in there. And you're left going, that just happened.
Well, I think it's perfect to talk about this right after mentioning the newest cartoon series.
Right.
Because, of course, that was brought up originally in the Clone Wars cartoon. It was repeated in the Rebels cartoon. And so, as far as the cartoons goes, that's been out there. That's been connected. That's what's going on. There are some issues with that idea. That there were issues when the cartoons did it. I think those issues become more pronounced now putting it back into the actual movies because those are typically considered a higher level of canon than any other Star Wars story.
Right.
And it really, for me, it brings in the question of, are there any stakes? Can characters die?
Yeah, I mean,
what does it take to kill somebody? I mean, if he's not dead, how can we?
Not.
Right, which he's not. I mean, obviously he's not
dead.
But can we be certain that anybody is dead?
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, come on back. You know, I'm telling you.
Hey, we don't even have a body for him.
Right.
I mean,
no body, no crime.
Darth Maul was cut in half and then dropped down the giant shaft there in Naboo on screen. If he's alive and kicking, so to speak, here in Solo, I mean, you have to question any character who's died, even the characters who died on screen.
Right. Qui-Gon Jinn, where are you?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So what? He just got stabbed and then cremated. He could have...
Is Darth Vader really dead? Is Darth Vader really dead?
Yeah.
That is an interesting question. And when I saw that, I was just like... I think I busted out laughing. Because I was just like, could we not shoehorn in, like... Okay, it's like... Their idea was this, okay? We got crapped on so badly in The Last Jedi for the decisions that we made. We're going to make this movie, and if you've watched any commentary on that, there were so many shoehorned in, references to Bosch, to, like the bounty hunters.
Yeah. Aura Singh and
Aura Singh.
Yeah.
It was like, good grief, man. You definitely wanted to make this movie closer to, the type of fan service that, people are expecting.
Yeah.
I thought that was really crazy.
I think they could make that work going forward if they start looking at these Star Wars stories, which have so far, the two we've gotten have been very closely tied to the original series, the original three. And we start looking at these stories as they're trying to expand the Star Wars universe and create like Marvel created with their MCU, like DC has been trying to create for years with their extended universe on screen. And if Star Wars is doing that and they actually go somewhere with these references, then it could work. The issue is, because we haven't had any setup for that so far, we've really only gotten, the trilogy movies, the prequel trilogy, they have the new trilogy, Rogue One, which tied in right into the opening scene of A New Hope. Solo was the farthest out any movie's been to be a standalone movie. And so we don't know what it is they're trying to do with it.
Right.
And so, when that's all we have, it looks like, okay, and they're just throwing that out there to throw stuff out there, and it doesn't matter at all. But if they start going places and we start seeing these movies be a little bit more connected in the future, then that might become a payoff that works.
Yeah.
Sort of like Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I mean,
yeah.
I am not opposed to having Darth Maul as a character.
No.
I thought he was awesome.
Yeah.
An awesome villain in Phantom Menace, and it was kind of a silly idea to kill him and replace him with Count Dooku.
Silly. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That was a bad decision.
Right. Looking back.
Looking back, we should have had Maul in the second film.
Yeah.
That would have been... Yeah. But... So, really my objection, right, to Darth Maul coming back is not, here's a character that didn't work. It's not like they resurrected Binks.
Right.
Right? Right? That would have been... No, anyway. But it's just that he died. I mean, it's just that what we saw... Movies bring characters back from the dead all the time. I mean,
it's a movie.
That's what happens.
Right.
In comic books, more so.
More
But
so all the time.
and which is fine because it works. There's a long and glorious tradition of that. They just had it's a tough job with, cut in half, and,
And on top of that, this movie didn't do that.
Right.
They didn't bring him back from the dead. They showed him alive.
Right.
Right.
There was
Exactly.
no explanation. If you've never seen Rebels or the Clone Wars, then you wouldn't know. That would be just shocking. And the fact
that's true.
The fact that Solo did not do well in the box office means that, just like Eric said, those stories are not going to get picked up. You know,
yeah. What are you going to do with? I mean, when are they
out there?
Yeah, when's he going to be back on screen?
And supposedly they've been doing a lot of this whole idea of like we're going to release comics and novels and all these other secondary things that explain all these questions that you have. But like I want to say is that your movie should stand alone by itself. It shouldn't need secondary material.
Pass it off to to the cleanup crew in the comics and the novels.
Yeah. Whereas it used to be back, during the Legends era of the Star Wars Expanded Universe, what the books and the comics and the TV shows, all of what those did was give you more opportunities to explore the universe around the core story of the movies told this story. And you got all of that story from the movies.
Which is what a good movie does.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to follow even the books that followed characters like Obi-Wan or Anakin or Luke, we're expanding on that story, not explaining it.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the movie, you get the Mos Eisley Cantina. And in the books, you get names for every one of those characters that you see in there.
Right.
Right.
And so they need to not, forget that when they're making their movies and require everyone to do all of the reading, to watch all of the TV shows, because people aren't going to.
People, and think about us who, are fans, right? I would consider everyone in this room a really big Star Wars fan. Okay, we're fans. And I know, hands down, I'm not going to go read all the books and the comics and the stuff to catch up on what I missed, in these movies.
Yeah, so after Force Awakens, which I had a really good in-theater experience with Force Awakens.
Of course.
Coming out of the theater, I was happy. I was thrilled. That as I look back on it, then I start noticing more issues. But in the theater, happy camper. Except I was what threw me in the theater was Poe's non-death, like when he crashed, assumed dead. The TIE fighter, fell over and sank into the sand and then exploded, right? And it's like, and then Poe's alive and he's fine. And I'm going, what happened? What happened? In which case, and I was expecting, later all this to be explained, and it wasn't. So when the novelization of the movie came out, I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to read this. Maybe they touch on this or give some explanation. And they didn't. He was same thing. Thrown clear. Yeah, thrown clear. Knocked out. And then, Finn made his way to civilization of sorts. And he made his way back.
Yeah,
right, that's
somehow.
Now that you brought that to my attention, I never quite really thought about what happened to Poe.
Oh, I had some crazy theories. What I thought when Finn came back and there's Poe, right? And it's like, he's alive. I'm expecting, this is a clone. This is, some, none of which was true.
Right.
But I was willing to go with it. Yeah. Right, but it was with he died there, but there's another one of him, or it's whatever. But so all that said, I did go read the book to see if I could find some more information, and I haven't got the Last Jedi book, which I assume,
they say it explains a lot more. In the book.
I haven't read that yet.
The funny thing is you go back now and you watch either The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens, and in the way I am about The Last Jedi, I can't watch that movie. I can't watch it again. But I've gone back and rewatched The Force Awakens, and you realize just how much better of a storyteller JJ was than Rian Johnson. They say that The Last Jedi was a first draft, but you can look back now and watch The Force Awakens after seeing The Last Jedi, and you're just like, this story versus this story, you're like, wow, The Force Awakens was just hands down so much better of a movie, because you have, in The Last Jedi, you have this long chase, that made no sense.
That is my number one beef with Last Jedi. Yeah. Honestly, my general philosophy on movies is I want to enjoy them as much as I can, and I will do what it takes to kind of, hey, I like this, great. Oh, I didn't like that so much, so I'm not going to think about it.
Right.
You know, that's generally.
The movie makes you feel.
I am, yeah. The interminable sublight speed chase.
It's like motorized go-karts.
Yeah, exactly. It's like two mopeds.
Yeah.
Going around, on the Indy 500.
Right.
for 6 hours.
And the crazy thing is, in technical terms, that's one of the highest speed chases ever shown on screen, just because sublight is still so incredibly fast in that universe. But the way they show it is so bad.
Oh, the loss of momentum.
Well,
like the ships that just all of a sudden just run out of fuel and stop. I mean, we're talking about space here. We're not talking about like Earth, where things lose momentum.
But imagine. Okay, Mission Impossible movie, right? They're high speed chases every movie. It's one of the things, and they do a great job. Right? Imagine. So they're on the chase. They start the chase, right? And they're going through Rome or wherever, right? And Ethan Hunt gets out of the vehicle, goes and does a side quest, and then gets back in the vehicle and continues the chase. That's what happened.
I know, right? Gets a bite. Oh my god.
Right? He goes and gets some lunch.
It's horses.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Go sit down, order a meal.
Cigarettes.
Exactly. And then, time to go back to my chase.
Jump right back in the car.
And off he goes.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
That's what the interesting thing. You start thinking about these things like, the Millennium Falcon, leaving, going to Act 2, coming back, finding the chase, and then her getting on, Snoke's ship, okay, and then getting off Snoke's ship, and then they're all still going at the same speed. You're like, what is going on here? Or even Leia, okay, little scene with Leia. Oh my gosh, that scene. Oh man. But okay, the bridge gets hit. She's blown out into space. Akbar dies. Rip Akbar.
It was a trap.
It was horrible. It was a trap.
It was a trap.
He
knew it was a trap.
He didn't even get to say his line.
So sad.
But he gets blown out into space. She gets blown out into space. And the ship is still going. Okay? It just goes right back to what you're talking about. Okay? Ship's still going at sublight speed. Yet, Leia's goes back to the ship, gets on the ship. The ship does not decompress. I mean, there are so many mind-blowing problems with The Last Jedi. When you start really watching it, you're just like, what? You can't... And a good movie makes you suspend disbelief,
Yeah. It makes you buy in.
Right.
Right? If you buy in, it doesn't incite that pushback.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
You can have wildly inaccurate as far as our known what we know about the universe. You can change stuff if it's consistent within its own world and the rules it sets up. You buy into that, you're good.
Right.
And it can be like almost anything, and you can buy it. But when you get that pushback, when you which is typically it's not the fantasy elements that get you, right. It's not the Jedi and the Force, and it's when you get emotional responses like that don't fit the case, right. You're like, people aren't like that.
Yeah.
Nobody acts like that. Nobody talks like that. Except Hayden Christensen.
Hate Sam.
That's what pulls you out of the story, and we don't like getting pulled out of the story. We're there to be pulled into the story,
entertained.
Yeah,
and that was the thing that stopped The Last Jedi. Really, is they had all of these good elements. They had a good story that they were trying to tell, and then they would stop doing that and show you the chase scene.
Or
or
jokes,
the jokes,
or
the side mission, or whatever. And they had their story that while you were watching it, you were engaged and immersed, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is interesting. What's going to happen? And then we're going to stop that and go do this other thing that you really don't care about.
Right. We're going to go save space horses.
Yeah.
Space horses. We're going to go save those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's just so many moments that in The Last Jedi like that you were just like, okay, Rey on the hillside handing Luke Skywalker the lightsaber. And I swear, I was like, what? When he just took the lightsaber, he's looking at it, and it just toss over his shoulder.
Check.
We're done. What? What just happened?
I thought it was hilarious, actually.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I was one of those people who laughed out loud with that. I tell you, what I think what helped with that was the incredibly long scene at the end of Force Awakens where she's holding it out, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a terrific setup for the it's because it has this huge momentous epic
what's going to
happen, and just the contrast is funny, right? And but actually the Lonely Luke Twitter page, have you seen that?
No.
It's Luke alone on his little rock, right, talking to his pet rocks, and he's lonely. He's all by himself, and he gets mad at his imaginary friends, and gets rid of them, and then he's lonelier. And anyway, it's hilarious. So there's some
it's a spoof.
It's a spoof of Cap, but it set up the kind of the grumpy Luke. He's kind of. I mean, it's easy to come to that with because we've seen this before, right? The Jedi Master all alone on a weird planet, right? Yeah. They'd kind of go crazy, right? It would have been exactly. So to that extent, just because I found that incredibly funny, I could kind of buy it. Was it a disservice to Luke's character? Maybe you didn't want to go that way, right? I mean, maybe that wasn't a good payoff for Luke's trajectory.
Correct.
And I don't feel like it was.
No.
But as just as the guy sitting in the audience, I found it funny.
Well, I'm glad somebody did. I was like, this disbelief was my first, what just happened? And why is Luke this grumpy?
He's just really grumpy. Well,
Yeah.
There were other moments in the film that I felt like were out of place. Overall, when Snoke dies, that was crazy to me. And how he died, and like, okay, and then you get to the end, okay? You get to the end of the movie where we're about to see Luke be just open up a can of whoop-ass on his old Padawan, and that fight where it's just like lasers are firing at him, and you don't realize yet that he's a projection. Like, I did not see this coming. Like,
No, I didn't see it.
Even with the blue lightsaber, I just didn't see it coming. And I also just was just blown away at how powerful he must have been to be able to do that. Like, I did not expect Luke Skywalker to even be that powerful. I mean, that's like the most powerful Jedi we've ever seen on screen, ever.
Yeah.
We've seen Yoda lift an X-Wing. We've seen these things happen that are, it just blows our mind, that people are this powerful. But we've never seen anybody project themselves across the universe.
Yes. Right.
And so, that being said, how did you guys feel at the end of that movie? I thought the scene where he disappears, okay? That scene, it's a callback to the original movie of him looking at the binary sunset.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I did too.
I did not get upset to see Luke fade into the Force,
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that, especially given the direction that they went with Luke, not just in Last Jedi, but in The Force Awakens as well. Because they really did set this up in Force Awakens even though we didn't realize it.
Right.
We didn't, when you just saw that, you didn't realize where Luke had gotten to in his trajectory. But going back after seeing Last Jedi, it's totally there.
Mm-hmm.
But given that's the story they wanted to tell with Luke, having it end with him there looking off into the sunset, and it's, as you say, it's very reminiscent of that first scene, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
That's where that story needed to end. If they're going to tell that, Luke goes off to live alone, becomes grumpy and disillusioned. If that's the story they're telling, that's how that story ends.
Right.
And I think they did it wonderfully, given what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I was not upset to see him die. I mean, because I figured he was going to die at the end of the second movie anyway. Pass the torch off.
Yeah.
Because one of the things they've said in writing these two movies is the writer that was working with JJ on Force Awakens, and even Rian Johnson has come back and said this. Every time he put the legacy characters on screen with the new characters became uninteresting because you're wanting so bad to know. That's why Han Solo died in The Force Awakens. That's why Carrie Fisher was out of the movie for most of it. That's why Luke was, sidelined to almost a B plot.
Yeah. Well, that's perfectly reasonable. I mean, we have to get new characters because we need new actors.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
We need new blood. I mean, you're gonna have to see. They've already said
we've seen this story, right? They did it. Mm-hmm. We can't forever be rehashing and extending. Oh no, this didn't work, and just infinite. No, we got the story. We can see some fallout from that. Yeah. That's interesting.
Because there's a lot of people that didn't want that.
Yeah.
They wanted to see Luke Skywalker, Carrie Fisher, and Han Solo. Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford on the screen together again.
Yeah. And it was fun, but that can't be what you build your film on.
No.
Or your saga. We need a new saga, is essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah, we do. And they've already said that the characters that are in these movies aren't going to continue on to. So you have, Rian Johnson with his own trilogy that he's making. You have the people that created Benioff and Weiss that created Game of Thrones making their own trilogy. You have a TV show by Kevin Feige. He's making a whole live-action Star Wars show. So, I mean, there are things in the works that are just, make your mouth drop, that are going to be great. I'm not on board for another trilogy that Rian Johnson is making, but that's just my own personal, angst.
That's right.
Yeah, that's my own personal thing,
And I wonder, one of the things that I think Solo proved is that there's a lot of Star Wars out there, and they need to stop hugging so closely to the originals.
Yes, they do.
We talk about, Star Wars, and all of the Star Wars movies that we have so far take place in the span of about, 80 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas we get lines thrown out there, like in Episode 1, the Sith have been extinct for a millennium. That's the kind of history we're talking about with this universe. That, we're going to look at this tiny sliver of what's going on in these three characters' lives. And so I think now that, with Disney's backing and money, and we're going to make, the original plan was a Star Wars movie every year. If that's what they're going to go for, that's great. Let's have them be a little bit less connected. Let's spread out some more and see some of the other things. One of the most successful time periods under the Legends era, that is the expanded universe, was the Old Republic.
I want to see a movie in that.
Yeah.
I would love to see. Because, that game was one of the best Star Wars games ever made.
Exactly. And it did so well. And that game takes place, 4,000 years before Episode 1?
Yeah, 4,000 years.
So, that's a lot of, you could do whatever you want there.
You have
and let history fix any of the problems.
Right.
Because there's so much time between that and the next thing.
Right.
That, sure, it works out. And then we get to the new movies, to the new movies, which would be the old movies at that point. And no problems. And I think we need to see more of that. Let's step away from the original trilogy. And let's see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. And I think we need to see more of that. and tell some new stories. And I think if they start doing that, even getting things like Rian Johnson doing his own trilogy, if it's something more like that, could work.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
The movie Last Jedi was gorgeous.
It was.
I mean, like hands down, the most creative, art-directed shot movie that I have seen in the Star Wars franchise ever. You know, like the movie was gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I'm with Eric here. You know, I think that we need to see new blood. You know, we need new blood infused into it. I think they need to go, you know, either way into the future or way in the past and start over.
Yeah. Or possibly, it's not ideal, but it might be a place to start, to do things like Rogue One, which was the same time period with radically different characters.
Correct. There was no Jedi in it.
Yeah.
You know, no Jedi at all. No, you know.
Yeah.
Besides the guy that, oh God, what was his name?
Chiro.
Yeah, Chiro. Yeah, you know, like the forces. I'm one of the force, and the forces with me.
Yeah, which was fantastic. I mean, the pair of them was delightful.
It's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
KSO was my other. You know, it's very sad to see him die. Which is funny. Okay, you have that in Rogue One, and then you know in Solo. The robot, revolution! You know, like getting shot down.
I'd forgotten about that. You're right. Yes.
Equal rights.
Yeah.
That was a little out there.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
Live without that.
But
so we've gone around and around and around the Star Wars thing. Final thoughts on this topic?
Final thoughts. I will go see the third film when it comes out. Right. I'm not. They haven't lost me as a fan. But yeah. Well, the third film in a series can make or break it. I feel like second films are always tough. And yeah, it could get a lot better. It could get a lot worse.
But you're on board.
But I'm yeah. I'll give it a shot.
True fan.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm gonna go see it. It's a Star Wars movie.
You know.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm gonna go see it. I'm probably gonna go see the one after that.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's Star Wars, and they're gonna have to work pretty hard to get rid of it. But they're also gonna have to work pretty hard to get everybody back.
Right.
And that's the spot they're in right now. So they can't just rest on it's Star Wars anymore.
Right. And I think they're figuring it out.
Yeah.
And that could be a huge plus for the fans. Because they might go, oh wait, we've got to really work. No, that's not good enough. No, that's not good enough. Let's let's make it right. And hey, that's what you need. I mean, competition is good for consumer.
It's true.
Wow. I'm with you guys too. You know, it's a Star Wars movie. I'm gonna go see it. I was not happy with The Last Jedi, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be excited to see how the story ends. You know, that's just the way I feel about it. And I'm with Eric and Sam here in saying that, you know, they're gonna have to work really hard to get rid of me. But I'm also not gonna be silent when I see something that I don't like. You know, and I know that I'm not alone as far as the fandom goes there and saying that. You know, that's how a lot of people are feeling right now. Well, we've talked quite a bit about Star Wars. Any other topics that you guys would like to cover today, or is this where we want to end it?
That might make a good segment. Is that an hour? Yeah, that's
a good segment.
That's a good length.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, sign.
Cut.
We talked for a solid hour.
Oh wait, was I supposed to hit record?